All right, back here in the studio with Captain Marty. Another great story from the archives. Marty, what kind of story we got going to talk about today?
Well, we're going to go back to my boyhood home of Ponce Inlet, Florida. Ponce Inlet on the south end of Daytona Beach. My house that I grew up in, 100 yards from the old south turn of the old beach race course that NASCAR started on.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's that old where they went from A1A onto the beach. That turn was right there. The second tallest lighthouse on the East Coast and a charter boat fleet right there in the street. Justin, before we get on to this story, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Think about it. And the question is, what is the main purpose of a boat?
The main purpose of a boat.
Yeah, what is its main purpose?
Okay.
Think about that a little bit, and when we come back, I'll give you the answer. Are you ready for a fishing thrill like no other?
Oh, there he is! There he is! Oh, got him up!
As seen on WikiTune Outer Banks, the Carolina Girl, captained by majestic Jesse Anderson, is a custom, luxurious, 53-foot Jarrett Bay-built boat running out of Hatteras Harbor Marina. Let Jesse and her crew give you a fishing experience of a lifetime. To book a trip, go online to CarolinaGirlSportFishing.com. Carolina Girl Sport Fishing, your offshore adventure awaits.
Real. That's the first word that comes to mind when I think about Outland Seafood in Mans Harbor. Yeah, they're the first and last place you see coming to and leaving the Outer Banks on Highway 64 in Dare County, but they're also real when it comes to fresh local seafood. Troy Outland, real. Curtis and Josh, real. The indoor crab shedders, real. Stop by and see for yourself right next to White Shopping Center and check them out on social media. Outland Seafood in Mans Harbor, real.
All right, Justin. So what's your answer? What is the main purpose of a boat?
I'm going to say, after some deep thought here, Cap, I'm going to say to separate you from the water, to keep you out of the water. Is that close?
The exact right answer. It's to float.
To float.
A boat's purpose is to float.
Got it. Okay.
And so, as I mentioned, we had a big headboat fleet down the end of the street in Ponce Inlet, and as kids, we would ride down there on our bicycles all day long. We'd catch liveys, which you up here would call a pinfish. This is now Central Florida, right near Cape Canaveral. And we'd catch all these pinfish, 5 cents a piece, and we'd make big money. We had a live well, and so we'd make a little money so we could play a little pinball in the tackle shop and whatever. And then we got to ride out on the weekends and on the headboats in the heyday of snapper and grouper fishing. So I met all the captains, and one I really liked was Captain Jake Stone.
Okay.
And I love all my story segments. You've heard many stories about Captain Jake. He was 6 feet 5 inches tall, bald-headed as could be, ex-Navy commander, retired Navy commander, and this was his retirement gig, but he was a typical Navy commander. And when he got mad, he was like, his head was like a glow plug. I mean, he had no hair, and you could see the blood red veins running through his head when he got mad.
Lord.
There's more about Captain Jake. Jake was the best fisherman in the fleet. He rescued more people out of Ponce Inlet, saved lives. Because there's a couple of the old story of the Miss Juanita, when he saved the lives of 6 people off a boat that had broken up in the inlet, and he was called the Dean of Skippers. Pretty good guy for me. When he offered me a job as a bait boy when I was 13 years old, then I moved up to second mate when I was 15 years old. So for 3 summers, I worked with Jake. Well, one of the things that was kind of interesting is, as second mate, we had a first mate named George Francis who was short-tempered, drank a little too much. Of course, I can't say much. Jake, on a good day when the fish were really biting good, we'd lay at anchor on the Flamingo 50 miles offshore, and he'd always have his bottle of peach-flavored brandy. Sipping on that, and happy he'd purse his lips when I went by the wheelhouse door. He's like, give me, that's if we were catching them. Now, if we weren't catching them, not so much.
Right.
But anyway, Jake taught me so much. He taught me a knot that I used all my life. It's the only knot you'll ever need to know. And I caught an 800-pound marlin on that knot. But we get into the dock in the evenings, and he would go home. That's what the captains did. They got off the boat and went home. The first mate would clean fish, and the second mate. So I'm second mate. George Francis and I would clean fish, and you threw all the carcasses in a wheelbarrow, and later that night you dump them overboard into the channel.
Right.
Well, down in Florida, they have these saltwater catfish, and when you throw a skin of a fish fillet They will boil on the water. I mean, thousands of them. They're still there. I asked my little brother about this the other day. And anyway, Jake went home. George Francis, the first mate, went home. That left just me and the bait boy. Well, that day, a guy from South Carolina was in our charter. And do you remember back in the days when South Carolina was really the only place you could buy fireworks?
Yes,
like
yes,
going north
I do. Yeah, south of the border.
South of the border,
yes.
Right. This guy had brought a trunk full of every kind of fireworks you could imagine. So after the crowd had cleared out, it's the cool of the evening, we were showing him how you could throw a carcass in the water and the catfish would boil up. And it blew his mind. Well, he had a big box of waterproof M80s. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Big illegal now firecrackers. Quarter of the stick of dynamite is what they used to say. He said, man, let's kill some of those catfish. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, these things are waterproof. I said, what do you mean? He said, let's light one and throw it in there and see what it does to those catfish. You could have walked on the catfish because they were starving. So you do something on top of the water, boom, they're like piranhas, very much like piranhas.
Wow, okay.
So we tried it. He gave me one. First of all, he gave me a whole cigar box full of them as a gift to take home. So we took one, we lit it, threw it in the water, and it went ba-boom. Like a big ba-boom.
Yeah, you can see
underwater. Big flash.
Yep.
And 25 catfish floated up to the surface.
Holy smokes.
We're like, wow. So we got a dip net, a crab net, and started scooping them out of the water to take home and eat. We thought, let's do it again. And we did it again and again, right there on the edge of the dock. And we filled up a wheelbarrow full of catfish. We thought, that's the cast now. Really cool. So went home. We were done. Tied the boat up good. Everyone's gone now. Go home, and I live right up the street, less than a block. Rode my bicycle home. In the middle of the night, there's somebody banging on our door at Ponce Inlet. Now remember, the first mate lived up in town. Jake lived a couple miles away, but I lived right near the boat.
So who was it banging at Captain Marty's door and why? We'll find out when we come back.
Teachers Lair Marina in Hatteras Village is the closest spot on the Outer Banks to the Gulf Stream. Just inside Hatteras Inlet, Teachers Lair is fully loaded with bait, tackle, ice, snacks, and drinks for your fun-filled day out on the water. Want to get rigged up to catch the big one? Lee and the gang in the tackle shop can outfit you to catch whatever is eager to get hooked. To see the marina, the tackle shop, or to book a charter, go online to teacheslair.com. Teachers Lair Marina in Hatteras Village. Your fishing venture awaits.
And my mom went to the door in her nightgown, and it was the night watchman from the dock, from the marina. And he said, the Flamingo is sinking. Now, this is a 65-foot headboat.
Jeez,
his whole life, he said, it's sinking. And we're like, what? And he says, you got to get to the boat. He had already called Captain Jake. No cell phones now, but called him on the landline. Jake called me and said, get to the boat. Something's bad wrong. So in the middle of the night, I raced down. My mom runs me down there. Get down there, and the exhaust pipe is already underwater, and the boat is listing. And Jake's like, untie the boat. Something is bad wrong. So I was terrified. It's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Jump on the boat. He runs up in the wheelhouse. He's cranking the motor up. He's like, get her untied. And I'm a little kid, I'm trying to throw off the line off the bow and 2 lines off the stern. It's a bulk. It's on a side. We're tied up alongside of the dock. About 5 things had to be untied. And here's this Navy commander with his head glow plug red, screaming at me, get her untied. So we got her untied. I knew what he was going to do. He fired that old 871 diesel up. And as soon as she cleared the dock, we went straight across the river and ran her hard as he could right up on the sandbar on an island. We called it Rattlesnake Island. It was a dredge island, a fill island. Ran her right up on there, and she leaned right over. And he's like, I don't know what happened, but we thought we'd beat something out of her during the day's fishing. Well, in those days, those boats were not fiberglass. They were caulk. And between every seam of the fur planks were caulking that you put in. And every time you went to the railway, you made sure all the caulking was in. You painted over it. Well, throwing those waterproof M80s underneath the chine of that boat, boom, 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 blew the caulking out of the seams. And she was, thank goodness we stopped when we did. So, I still hadn't figured it out what had really happened. And I was a kid. We went over there. So that night, the tide, a lot of tide, 6 feet of tide, went all the way out. So the boat laid completely over on her side. I'm stuck on that boat on a uninhabited island with Captain Jake, and we sit there and he's like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. Well, when the tide and when the sun came up, we were able to get out and look outside the boat and walking. I mean, we're on hard sand. He said, the caulking's all gone on the starboard side of the boat. Well, how could that have happened? So you always keep caulking on your boat. So we're out there with a screwdriver pushing caulking back into the seam. And then when the tide came back up in, we went straight to the railway, the old marine lift railway. And we went over there and he hauled the boat out of the water. And there was about 18 feet of caulking blown
Holy
outside that boat.
smokes.
And you know what? I thought about it. I wonder if I should confess. Nobody knew but me. You know, I was the first mate had gone home, Jake had gone home, and the guy had gone back to South Carolina. I don't know what happened.
I was going to say.
I don't know. Got me. And to this day, I mean, Jake's long since gone, but I'll take that one. Well, I guess I'm telling you, so public knowledge now, but that was the day I almost sunk the Flamingo.